I'm completely with you on that, and that's
Because you also do the. I don't know if you started the Pod Tips
yes,
Facebook group. Did you
yes,
start that one?
yes, yeah, and so it's kind
I really. That's one of my favourite ones.
oh, well, I mean, it's relatively small compared to I think we've got about 4,500 people
Mm.
in there, and that has come under now the banner of Podomedy, which is
Yes.
the
Something
new
else
thing.
that you're doing now.
There's a new thing, yeah. So we're building a podcast,
So it's like a comedy-based podcast network.
comedy-based podcast network, and also it's going to be we have the facility to be a production house as well. So we've been going through the hoops and things that you have to with various companies like the
Have
BBC.
you got a website?
Yeah, podomedy.com if you want to go on there.
Let's have a look.
I do have a T-shirt for that, but that is in the wash because it's white, and yeah.
It's a good idea.
And the great thing about it as well is there's only one Podomedy. It's almost a Google whack. There is a
Oh wow!
Podomedy, which is a kind of a foot spa in Belgium.
Do you know what a Google whack is, Liam?
Is that when you only get one result on Google?
Which is very hard to get these days. I remember when Dave Gorman back in the day. You remember that?
Exactly. So yeah. So the idea is, it is kind of what we've realised is I've been doing this for years with people, is having conversations with people and saying, oh yeah, I'll help you set up, help you do this, help you do that. And it's all been done very much on an ad hoc basis. Some people, I've done it as a favour. Some people I've done a discount for. Some people I've charged for. And then I'm also sort of in that comedy podcast space as well now, and I work with a lot of these different people. And Damien does as well. And Damien's, again, been the driving force behind this. And the idea is that we're effectively creating almost like, I call it like a Masons of podcasting. So in terms of we're all coming together under one barrier. So you would still be, so for example, if we were doing it with you, you still have complete copyright and control over what you do. But rather than just you being one podcaster shouting into the wind, you're then part of a group of us. So myself and Tech and whoever else we brought on. So we will then carry promotions and cross-promotion adverts for what you're doing, potentially some crossover for guest stuff, all within the one barrier and one umbrella. And then we also, as a collective, then we go forward and we negotiate for sponsors for the whole thing rather than for the individual shows. That's potential one avenue on the further down the line.
Yep.
The other one is then we start putting live shows on, or we have a stage at Edinburgh, or we do something like this, and then we also work together. So instead of just having this one to help you get set up at the beginning, we have regular check-ins, and we'll look at where are you struggling, what are you not good at. And
so it's not just for new people. It's for you could amalgamate established podcasts as well.
So actually, what we're looking for with this is rather than producing podcasts. So a lot of my day-to-day work is the production and working with people like that. It's more on the development side of things. So people that already have their podcast, what are their pain points? What are they struggling with? Where can we do it? And what we found, especially with a lot of comedians, is they've done a podcast because they feel like they have to have a podcast, but they're not really sure what they're doing.
Yeah. Or
they've been doing a podcast and it has not been picked up, and they've done a podcast and they stopped doing it because it wasn't getting 15 million listens. And so the idea is okay, so what can we do with that? Can we maybe, and so eventually, this might become an app. It might become like the equivalent of Dave, in terms of where it comes, like the home of, they put themselves as the home of comedy. Dave want to buy us, fine. We haven't officially launched yet, but we'll be up for that. And so the idea is that we'll have regular sort of check-ins, developments with each podcast that's in there, and work with them as well, and also utilising their ability. So it's more like a cooperative, really, is what we're looking towards.
It's a great idea.
And so we're approaching it as a thing where we're not expecting to make loads of money from this, at least in the first year. But the idea is together we're stronger. That's
so will the money mainly be raised from advertising?
Potentially.
Right, yeah.
But that's in terms of, it could be from events and live shows as well.
Yeah.
So the idea is that we, what haven't you got? And then hopefully we've got that. If we don't have those skills within the network, we've got somebody with those skills as well.
Right.
So we bring them together. So we're starting off that way, and yeah, we'll see what happens. So we're hoping to announce our first cohort of founders, if you will, on World Podcast Day at the end of September when we launch. So if things are in place, and at the minute we're just looking around, and that was one of the things I was doing at Edinburgh, was actually going and looking not just as a fan but also somebody to go
some business.
Yeah, and just seeing what we could do with people, and also speaking to them.
Because Damien's involved in that as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
So this is so he again he's more of the
business side of it.
Well, no, it's not. It's not even that. It's because Damien has 2 small kids, and I know you're a recent dad as well.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is there's 2 things that happen to people when they become parents. Right, they have less sleep, right?
Mm-hmm.
Less sleep and more worry, but also they become incredibly efficient, right? Because everything is put into like 20-minute windows.
You've only got to work in small amounts of time. You've got to get stuff done.
And so, whereas I'd be like, yeah, I've had this idea for a kid's book. Now, since I told Damien I've had this idea for a kid's book, he's written and published 2 kids' books. And I'm still kind of going...
He's not messing around.
What am I going to call the little girl?
And he goes, the end.
Yeah. So he's got like... By the time mine comes out, he's going to have like a whole Mr. Men, sort of, the whole 36 books in the series, whatever. But it's a nice dynamic that we're with. So that's very much his one of the things that he brings to the table. What I bring is in terms of like the actual connection that I've got with a lot of people that we're working with, because the people that we're talking to about bringing on board are people that I've helped launch sometimes 1 or 2 different podcasts previously, that I've guested with, that they've been voices on other projects that I've done, that I've been and supported and been and seen their comedy and those kinds of things. So it's
it could be a Podomedy podcast as well.
Potentially, although that's getting a bit meta. But yeah, so we'll see what happens. I mean, what might happen with that is that Podomedy would possibly, if there was a Podomedy podcast, it would be like a highlights.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
bring
that's what I was thinking.
But we'll see what happens with that. But it's this is a new thing. This is growing. This is exciting, and yeah.
So if anyone's got a comedy podcast or comedians are looking to have a somewhere,
get in touch
home
with us. Yeah, we're on Instagram at Podomedy Network as well. I think we're on Twitter, although I can't quite remember.
Have you heard of Eddie Hurst? Comedian Eddie Hurst.
Eddie Hurst. No, tell me more.
Right. He started. Well, he was on here years ago, not around at the same time you were first on here. But he's a stand-up comedian.
Right. There you go.
But he also does. Where is it?
This is why I have my notebook.
He's also started acting out. I'm gonna have to find this first. Before I butcher
not the cricket player.
No.
I think it's this, isn't it?
EDY.
That's him.
That's him.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sure he's based in Manchester as well.
All right.
Where is it? He did has it mentioned his podcast on there?
It just sent me to a mailing list.
EDY.
Podcast War of the Worlds.
That's the one.
Oh, nice.
So let me just find the
podcast version of Jeff Wayne's. Now, there's some synchronicity because we've been working to some ambitious projects with the champ. So one is we want to do a panto Italian in rhyming prose, but also I wanted to do a wrestling version of the War of the Worlds. But it would be the War of the different wrestling. And I mean, I'm a big fan of what I remember getting the Jeff Wayne album when I was a kid, and it blew my mind. And then I saw the live show, and it was only when I saw the live show that I realized like the subtext of it in terms of you have a war between the band and the orchestra all the way through it. And not being a musician, I hadn't clocked that.
Yeah.
And to see it live, especially when I saw it in Brighton when they did the first series of live shows. And so I think they had like a 55-piece orchestra and like 19 people in the band. And it was just... Loved it.
So he stopped about 3 months ago, but he's season 2, chapter 10.
Right, I'll listen to that.
So, but it's not really my cup of tea. But I had him on, and he was a funny guy. But I just thought this is the kind of when I saw, I was being meaning to mention to you. I thought I might as well just wait until you hear. But it seemed like he put a lot of effort into it. And there's a lot of production to it, and he's a funny guy. So I thought, it could work.